episode 31, and it's Rich and Kat again. No surprise there.
It'll be a surprise one day, we'll bring somebody else in.
Yeah, well, we've actually got a lot of guests coming up, but we're trying to save them, let's say, for kind of more winter, because, we'll do the odd one before that point, but, of course, the motorsport season's going to slow down. As we know with IndyCar, that's just happened. Formula 1 goes a bit further, doesn't it, than most,
Yeah.
but a lot
Nearly
of things...
Christmas they go to, don't
I
they?
know, but it will start slowing down more and more. So, we've got some really exciting guests lined up. So, we'll gradually announce those as we go. But what have we been up to this week then?
Well,
last week, really.
Last week now, yeah.
So, one thing, apologies that it hasn't been at the weekend like we normally do, like the Friday or the weekend. We were actually away working, weren't we? So,
yes.
Hence why we had to do it today.
Yes, so we did our normal sort of stuff at the Experience Centre at Porsche, but we also took one of our clients on his first track day, didn't we?
Yeah,
so we did
it
the
was
day with
good.
him at Millbrook, didn't we, a few weeks ago?
Yeah.
Sort of laid some foundations and got a bit of technique for him to think about, and then he wanted to do a track day, so we did our first track day.
I think he was quite surprised because he did Millbrook thinking, I just want to learn a bit more about the car. It's the first time I've had one of these, powerful rear-wheel drive. Being all very sensible and logical with that. So, of course, Millbrook's brilliant for just trying out lots of different areas, because it's a proving ground, isn't it?
Stuff.
So you can do all things from dynamics to track to road to all sorts of stuff. So really good introduction to the car. So we did all that, but I think he got the bug basically, didn't he? He wanted to do a track day, and he's already talking about racing now, which is quite funny. I think he was a little bit apprehensive when we first got to Goodwood. Goodwood's quite an intimidating place in the fact that you go back in time when you go to Goodwood, don't you?
Yeah, it's one of my favourite circuits. I love Goodwood.
Yeah, and I think it was a nice high-end track day, which was great. But of course, there's all these beautiful cars there, and lots of people that also race, so racing suits and boots and all that kind of stuff. And I think, initially he thought, whoa, what am I got myself into? But after the first, outing with you, Rich, he was on his way, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
So we shared it, didn't we? So you did the morning, I did the afternoon.
Yeah.
We don't always do that. Sometimes we have clients together and do one each, but we found it really works actually quite well, doesn't it? Sharing it.
Yeah, it's quite a nice way of doing it, really.
If
he was
can.
knackered by the end, wasn't he?
He was.
That's it.
But it's just because we word things slightly differently. Obviously, I just picked up from where Rich left off, but we have slightly different styles, and I think that actually can help people, can't it?
Yeah, it can.
So you ended up doing most of the wet bit, and I ended up doing the dry bit, really, which wasn't intentional, but that's just how it worked out.
Because he was in a 992 Porsche, they've now got wet mode on them, which is a fabulous setting because it doesn't slow the car down at all, and you don't know it's doing any more. It's just keeping you that little bit safer when it's slippery. So we ran in wet mode most of the morning, and it was perfect. Really.
Yeah, especially Goodwood in the wet because it's the second fastest track in the UK.
It must be after Thruxton.
Is the fastest average.
Because it's not a difficult track. It just isn't very forgiving. So if you go there and you're pushing quite hard, there's no margin for error really.
Absolutely.
But it's actually a good track to start with because it's not particularly difficult, is it?
It's not too long. You have a mixture
technical.
of corners, but a lot of them are quite high speed. So it's great sort of starting point the way Goodwood run it. So they only allow about 7 cars out at a time. And you do 15-minute sessions, which doesn't sound very long, but actually 15 minutes when somebody's learning is perfect because then you can have a break, have a chat, go through things, let the car cool down and start again. So it means you don't have too many cars around you. You can find your own space. And I love that because there are many track days, especially you go to places like Silverstone, where you could have like 100 cars out together.
Yeah. And they're all out at the same time, aren't
they? And when somebody's learning, that's very intimidating because you've got different experience levels. Some people are super respectful, others will get a bit closer, more like you would experience on a general track test day. So this is I really do recommend Goodwood for the way it's run for anybody who's starting out. So even though you don't have extra runoff and that kind of thing, I guess really when you're learning, you don't need to push to that point anyway.
No, you don't. No.
Because it's more about the techniques and getting in a rhythm and really just getting those foundations in place first, isn't it? Before you really get to that point of truly pushing, let's say.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so that was good fun, wasn't it?
It was.
Enjoyed
It was a good day. That was.
So yeah, we've done that. Done Porsche as well at the Experience Centre. Also, I've been working on the Veloce Academy. So tomorrow we've got a meeting with the mind coach and another performance fitness and nutritionist. So because of course there is a difference between training boys and girls. So hopefully we're going to have 2 trainers on the program, one that will specialize in the guys and then the one that will specialize in the girls. So because of course there are more women getting into it now, or girls, so we want to make sure we utilize that as well, and we've got the right preparation for both sexes. So so yeah, lots going on there too, which is quite exciting. I can talk to the mind coach forever. I just find it fascinating, you know, because it's psychology of any sport is a big deal, and she understands it very intimately, so it's really fascinating. But yeah, so we'll move on to road cars.
Yes, so a bit different this week. So we're not really talking about any particular cars. We're going to touch on one in a minute, but it's more some sort of concepts and stuff we've been
just where the industry is going, isn't it? There's a lot of talk by 2025. I mean, I read something the other day. I don't know how true this is, but the 718s Porsches all going to electric by 2025, which kind of surprised me. But then apparently Porsche have said they will never make the 911 fully electric. It would be a hybrid, but they don't want to make it fully electric. And they're going to separate the 718. How true this is, we will find out.
Well, yeah, I think things could change. But the car industry is fascinating because they look so far ahead of themselves all the time. You know, and you find stuff they were working on 10 years ago coming out now. You know, so who knows? I mean, Porsche, as we've spoke about a couple of weeks ago, have gone in 2 different directions. They've pumped a load of money into a company that make powertrains, electric powertrains, but they've also pumped a load of money into synthetic fuel. So
absolutely
interesting to see. But Audi are very much that what they're looking at is the concept of fully self-driving cars, really high-end, very luxury self-driving cars. That's what they're kind of focusing on a little bit.
They want to make it, they were sort of explaining it a bit like being in a first class, you know, when you go on a trip in an aeroplane, having that kind of really luxury experience, let's say, or a private jet, something like that.
So whether you get a steward sits in the back or something.
So yeah, and they of course are very conscious of it being eco-friendly. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see where they want to take things, and they want to sort of bridge that gap between themselves and people like Bentley, who've had huge success and grown a lot, even in the last year, haven't they?
Yes, of course, Bentley will take some of the technology, won't they? But the Volkswagen have got to be a little bit careful how they pitch it, because obviously because Bentley's now, you know, the factory, apparently there's a huge waiting list now if you want a Bentley, because the factory at Crewe's tiny compared with, you know, Volkswagen's factory. But so they've got to be careful that they don't overlap too much of what Audi are doing, I guess.
What they're trying to do is, the one thing for the Audi, I think they're aiming to keep that more cost effective, let's say, because an average Bentley sells for about 200,000. Which includes about 28,000's worth of extras
bits of wood and leather,
to personalise how you want. So I think what Audi want to do is go for the luxury market, but more cost effective. So like the next level down, but make it as luxurious as possible with that budget, let's say. But they also want to make it eco-friendly. So they're going to use, in the future, no leather at all, so it's going to be recycled materials, isn't it? Instead, so really moving away from what we've known for many years for luxury, and using a lot of different materials that I'm sure will be just as lovely but more effective when it comes to being eco-friendly, and the image of it as well.
I mean, for me, I've always found it a little bit odd that we always have leather seats in cars, because if you get really good fabric ones, I think they're actually better a lot of the time.
Well, because quite often, I mean, I love leather, but the thing with it is it's too cold in winter, and it's too hot in summer. And I know, okay, a lot of these luxury brands, you've got heated seats and cooling seats to counteract that, but it's a lot of effort.
Yeah, it is.
You know, because you've got a leather seat, basically.
I think as a touch point, leather on the steering wheels nice.
Yeah.
But I don't know really if you need it on the seats.
But I think we have the resources now to create things in a classy way without using leather, and use all sorts of materials that we've not used before. So it's a real game changer. So they've called it the Grand Sphere, haven't they?
Yes.
Which is apparently going to replace the A8 eventually.
Which I think they've always struggled to sell a bit, haven't they, from reading what they were saying. So I think that's probably also what they're looking at, is that this is going to be successful where the ways the A8 never has been, really.
Absolutely.
Even though the A8 is a great car.
Yeah. But I think it's because there are so many different versions of Audis, and I think they trip over each other a little bit, don't they? A bit like the BMWs and things. And I think that's why they want to do this, right? Well, actually, let's separate that and make this really luxurious in a very different way, and pitch it closer towards a Bentley.
Yes.
Which I think is what they're aiming for.
Yes, and I guess if you're in that sector where you want a big luxury car, people look at S-Class, I guess, as much as anything else.
Exactly. So they're aiming for what, 2025?
Yes.
With this car. They call it level 4 autonomy. So basically a driverless car, but you can drive it yourself. And there's going to be all sorts of technology. Porsche have merged in with this, with rear axle steer and
they'll make it handle
other things. Yeah, so because the aim is to keep it very low centre of gravity. It's going to be long but low. So you get the handling like a short wheelbase, but you get the touring of a long wheelbase. So lots of clever technology there as well, and I think it looks brilliant if it actually looks like that.
Yeah.
Because of course sometimes with concept cars, but they said this is far more than a concept car. It's very close
to where they're coming to. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So if it carries on down that path, I think they could have huge success with this, because now that things are really changing with what people are buying, so it's now up to 10% of people buying electric cars. Well, that's a massive shift to what it used to be.
Very quickly as well.
And very quickly in the last couple of years, that's changed. So people are, starting to look at alternatives. Now, okay, we're petrol heads through and through, aren't we, really? But that doesn't mean we're not open to new technologies, and you've got to move forwards with things. And I think eventually people like Porsche especially, they aim to be really successful with both markets, because I think electric is here to stay, but it's not the only solution. And I think Porsche are very aware of that.
Yeah.
Which is why they're investing so much in this fully synthetic fuel. And I'm sure eventually, Porsche are always very ahead of the game with this kind of stuff, aren't they? And others will follow suit. I mean, if you think back to when SUVs started becoming a big thing in sports car brands, and there was a lot of people doubting that, and then it became the biggest seller, and suddenly everybody's doing it now. So Porsche are very good at leading that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But that leads us on to sort of British Volt, doesn't it?
Yeah, which is an interesting thing. So the funny thing when you make a battery for an electric car is the amount of carbon its carbon footprint is horrific.
Far more than you think.
Yeah. So interestingly, this company called British Volt, which was set up by a guy he's an Arab, isn't he, that set it up. But they've built this massive factory up in the northeast in Blythe, in Northumberland. And they've got the guy who was he was head of Ford UK, but he's Ford's engine guru. And they've got him to look after it. Quite an amazing guy, really interesting bloke.
Yeah, his name's Graham Hoare.
Graham Hoare, And he was one of the people that he set from a standing start, built 12,000 ventilators during the pandemic.
Yeah, and I think he says himself, like most people, it changed his outlook on things going forward to the pandemic, and I think he's done that for so many people. And he's very much thought, actually we're gonna transform the battery, aren't we?
Yes.
For this industry.
Yeah, because his point is that when you put an electric car on the road, at that point its carbon footprint isn't great. But of course, over the life of the car, in theory, that footprint reduces.
Yeah.
You can argue about, all you've done is shift the problem somewhere else, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah.
So his plan is to try and reduce the carbon footprint of making it in the first place. So hence why it's in Northumberland, because you've got wind power, you've got hydropower coming across from Denmark.
Yeah.
So he's trying to make that and the supply chain as green as he can make it.
Absolutely. So then it is a far more green solution, because as it stands, and it was always going to be a process, wasn't it? It's never going to be a quick fix. Here's batteries, and this is super green straight away, and there's no hurdles to overcome. It's not been like that at all. It's green when it's in a city driving around, but the build up to that point and the car itself isn't that green. So
No.
so that's really what he wants to change.
That's kind of where he's coming from.
And
really.
exactly, and I think if he can achieve that, then we're going to see that pretty much then in every electric car going forwards, aren't we?
Yes. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see against Musk, I suppose, with what he's doing.
Yeah, because he's having problems with his factory in Germany because he can't get it through legislation. It's not clean enough.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Well,
know,
what
where
does
this
that
factory
tell
already
me?
is. You know.
Absolutely. So they're really ahead of the game here. So I can't believe we're massive car enthusiasts and we're talking here about batteries, but you've got to embrace the future as well, and it has to keep evolving and moving forwards, and I hope that doesn't mean goodbye combustion engines. I honestly don't think it will. I just think we're going to have a bit like in the past where we've had petrol and diesel. I think we're going to have different alternatives, solutions for different people depending on what you want, what environment you're in, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, so I thought I actually would be so much more on board with electric if they can make that process much greener, because that's always been my reservation with it, really, is how green is it really?
Yes. And things like you were saying before then, if 718 is going to go all electric, and it doesn't need to do 0 to 60 in half a second.
Yeah.
You know, if it does 0 to 60 in 6 seconds, but it's great to drive.
Yeah.
You know, that's because at the moment, an electric car goes really fast and that's it. So once they start to build electric cars that are great to drive as well, they don't need to be as, the fastest things on the planet.
But that's what he says, isn't it? About that's the other problem with sports cars is with electric is the weight of the batteries, and that's something else he wants to overcome. So you can have performance, not just in a straight line, but actually have true handling. I mean, so far people like Porsche, they've just put the batteries as low as they can to lower the center of gravity so you don't notice the weight, because something like a Taycan is 2 tons. I mean, that's a huge amount of weight, really. And in fairness, it doesn't feel like a 2-ton car. They're very clever,
it doesn't. No.
But it's there's a lot of technology to overcome that. And obviously, if we can simplify the process, have the batteries smaller, have the batteries cleaner, all that kind of stuff, then actually we can have light, agile cars like we're used to, but then be green at the same time. So there's a lot of progress there. So it'll be interesting. A lot of targets seem to be with most of the manufacturers 2025. And we'll start really seeing this. So
then we'll see what happens.
But obviously that's a little way away, and so let's hope with the fully synthetic fuel we know a bit more about that by that time as well. So we'll have to wait and see. So on to something that is a bit different then, is the Golf R estate, which you wanted to talk about.
So only briefly really, because we've been a bit disappointed with the new Golf that you can't get a 3-door. And to me, the 4-door...
Or a manual.
Or a 5-door, because the 5-door, I always think it doesn't work. It looks like there's too many doors on it, and it always has looked that way for me, the Golf. Where the estate obviously is designed to have 5 doors, so it just looks a lot better. So I think of the current Golfs, the Golf R estate would be one that I'd be, if it was in the market, be looking to have. I think it suits better being a DSG. It suits the 5-door better.
Yeah.
It's got all the same running gear. It's got the trick front end on it and the trick 4-wheel drive system, drift mode, all that stuff.
Whether you need that, I don't know.
Yeah. And it's interesting that they've done this, because BMW also leaked this week the new M3 Touring.
They have, yeah. So what's that look like? Because I've not seen it.
Well, it just looks like a 3 Series Touring, because it's got the big pipes and a massive engine in it,
So a much better version. Then.
Yes. So if you need to move your Labrador around really quickly, you've got more and more options.
I'm sure the Labrador would really appreciate that somehow. So if we move on to driving then, we thought we'd talk a little bit about learning a new track, because obviously taking out somebody for their first ever track day recently, it brings it home that there's a lot of people that are merging into it, so we thought we'd go into that a little bit.
So I thought it's a kind of process that we run through with people, isn't it, whether they're new to track driving full stop or whether it's a new track to them. And of course you've got the option to start before you go to the track of getting onto a simulator and doing what we're going to run through now, but doing it on a sim before you go to the track.
So we'd always say, ideally, depending how seriously you're taking it, of course, how much you want to spend, how much time you've got, there's always limitations with these things. But in an ideal world, these days with the technology of racing simulators, we'd strongly recommend, especially if you are seriously trying to race and progress quickly, then racing simulators are brilliant for that. And I say racing simulators, You can buy your own sim now, but you don't have to necessarily if you don't want to invest in that. There are lots of people, including us, with Speedworks that are running these great sims, and you can go and get a lot of coaching on a sim and really make the foundations there before you even get to the track.
Yes.
But of course, not everybody has the luxury or time or money, let's say, to invest in
No,
that
and they do
element.
tend to sit around a lot if you've got a sim. So going to a sim company makes a lot of sense because you've not got things sat there doing
we've
nothing
got
most of the time.
a great simulator at home as well, but admittedly we use it a lot for work, but it doesn't get the use it probably deserves with us personally, does it?
No.
But I think that's because, well, we're always at track anyway, aren't we? And then we got the luxury of the Speedworks on now, which is just another level. It's so much more immersive. That's what I love about it. But yeah, so
the only new track then. So we always start with a map, don't we?
Yeah.
Because the first thing you've got to do when you look at a track map is work out. You spend more time going in a straight line than you do anything else. So where are the longest straights? Finding that out first, because what you're going to look at then is which are the key corners that then lead onto those straights.
Exactly, and that's a really good point, isn't it? That any corner before a long straight is a key corner.
Key corner.
So I often, when coaching people, get people to circle those corners. So what are the priority corners out of the entire track? So just firstly, you can really focus on those, can't you? Knowing those are the major priority.
Yes. So you've got your key corners then. Then you're looking at where there's any complexes of corners. So you can have a little look at where the important bits there. But also when you've looked at the straights, what happens at the end of the straight? Is there another key corner? Is it leading to a complex?
Yeah.
So you can start to, in your mind, before you actually drive the car, start to work out where the priority bits are before you set off onto the
And of course, eventually you want to get to a point where everything's flowing brilliantly, but to start with, it's easier to break it down into sections so it's less overwhelming. And of course, I think it's probably worth explaining really why the straights, the corners before a straight, are so vital.
So the most important part of pretty much every corner is the exit. If you've got a complex, which is why you need to look at that, so in other words, you've got a corner that leads to another corner, it's the exit of the complex that's the important bit. So setting yourself up to get a good exit out of any corner is important, but if it's the key corner, i.e. it leads onto a straight, that's going to affect your overall lap time. So starting with that is a good point when you're sort of planning what you're going to do.
Because I often say to people, okay, let's say you brake later and you barrel in and you save a tenth, but then on the straight by the end you've lost 6 tenths. Then it's not effective. Whereas what you can gain or save by the end of the straight is massive if you get a good exit. And most people, when they're learning, don't recognise that. They think, well, I need to brake less, carry more speed in, and they're focusing so much on the entries. But then, of course, if you then make the corner twice as long by carrying the speed in and you can't get the load off the car, get the car straight and get the power down, by the end of the straight, you're so much slower. So we really try and get people to look at things differently. That, ultimately it's all about getting the exits, getting the car straight, getting that power down, and focusing the other way around, and using your brakes, of course. That's another thing that people, when they're learning, don't always appreciate. Braking can make you faster because it's not just about slowing the car, it's setting the car up for the corner. There's lots that we can go into with that. But carry on.
So then when you first go out to track, you've got an idea then of which the key points are. But then you want to just take your time, have a little look around. So take it slowly, because you can look at bits of road then and look at things like where the rubber marks are on the curbs, because quite often you'll see the lines that are taken most of the time because of where the rubber is on the curb. So you can start to use that then and start to put that together with some of your other reference points that you might be looking for, like, if they've coned it, for example, if it's a track day, you don't get that on test days. They can start to help you piece it together. But also looking for things like marshals posts. So there's going to be a yellow flag out, which you've just been told about in the driver's briefing. Where's that going to be?
Absolutely.
So knowing where they are, it's all vital information when you're first going out onto the circuit.
Yeah, you just really want to be as intimate with the track as quickly as you can. And the problem is, if you bomb around, you actually don't really get that intimate with the circuit. So as hard as it is, you do have to start slow, whether you're an experienced driver or not. If it's a new track, or it's because you're new in general, you need to take your time, take in as much information as you can, and as Rich says, really think about reference points, because reference points to start with just help you build the general kind of flow, doesn't it, of what you're doing, and then you can then start, of course, we've mentioned things in the past with vision, that kind of thing, and then you can start bringing that in, so you're using your reference points but also using your vision combined, and building from there.
Yes, and you're gradually going to start building your speed up then.
Absolutely.
And a key thing I always say to people is don't follow what other people are doing.
Oh, that's so true.
Because you might be following Lewis Hamilton, but you might not be.
Yeah.
You know, and plus, you know, how's their car set? What are they doing in the car to manipulate the car? You don't know. So don't ever follow what other people are doing. You
Absolutely. And it's so true, because you get so many people say, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? Well, the thing is, it's so dependent on their experience level. Firstly, are they doing the right thing?
Yeah.
But even if they are, is that what you should be doing? Because are you on slicks with aero and bloody blah, or are you on a road car? There's so many variations. So fundamentally, you might be doing a similar thing, but the details might alter slightly depending on the vehicle. So it's so important to do your own thing. Plus, also, if they make a mistake, and I know I've done this. I did it at Alton Park Racing. I'm dicing for 3rd place and went off because I was so focused on the car in front. He made a mistake and I followed him into exactly the same mistake. So it's so easy to get very fixated on people.
Yeah. So don't.
And it doesn't always end well, let's say.
No. So start concentrating on getting good exits, like we've said, especially from the key corners. Build it up slowly. But the main thing is think about what you're doing. So, you know, don't just drive around. Try to think and analyse about what you're doing. So think, right, I'm going to try and get a good, what line can I use? Where can I get the power on earlier? Think about what you're doing, and gradually your speed will start to build up from there. Absolutely. And then when you're between sessions, get your map out again.
Yeah.
You know, start to go through
down.
it.
Yeah,
so you can debrief yourself. Okay, what am I happy with? What am I not happy with?
Absolutely, yeah. You know? And there's so much you can do, making notes, and you can refer back to those. And we do it, coaching people all the time. We have several maps over a day for each session.
Yes.
And you might not keep one map, and it might be that I often get the driver to write things down, really, and give examples of what they think they're doing. So then we can see if what they think they're doing and they're actually doing the same thing or not, and build from that. But of course, if you haven't got a coach with you, you can do a lot of this yourself.
Yes.
And you'll be amazed how much faster you'll learn by doing that, than just, you know, banging around for 15-20 minutes, coming in, having a break, and then doing the same thing. You get more out of it. It's more rewarding, more fun in the long run, because you achieve things so much quicker, don't you? So so I certainly would recommend that. Of course, we're bound to say, you know, get a coach and then we can help you all that, but we understand not everybody wants to be, you know, not everybody wants to do that or have the resources to do that. So there's lots of things you can do yourself. One thing we haven't mentioned with this as well is actually watching videos on boards and things. That can also be really useful beforehand, just to get a feel for things and what they're doing. Obviously you have to bear in mind who you're looking at and what car they're in, but it will give you a feel for the circuit, won't it?
It will, yeah.
So we've had a bit of an exciting time on motorsport, haven't we?
Yeah. So a couple of exciting things happened this week, and it was building up to being a cracking weekend for McLaren.
Yeah, so if we talk about the Russian Grand Prix, now most people are going to know about this now, so we can talk about it quite openly, can't we?
Yeah, so...
well, first of all, typical practice, Bottas the quickest.
Yeah.
I want to say that because it highlights to me how quick Bottas is, but how he struggles with pressure. And often then that's a difficult thing for him. That said, admittedly in qualifying, it wasn't really all his own fault, was it?
No,
because it was actually his teammates.
Yes, so it was drying, wasn't it, in Q3, and Hamilton was pushing and went off, which affected Bottas's lap.
Yeah.
But what we ended up with was Lando on his first pole.
Which was brilliant, because after he had his big accident, was it a Spa?
Spa, yeah.
Yeah, and that was in between conditions, and him pushing really, really hard. When he first got back in the car, he seemed to have lost a little bit of that edge. It's
taken him a couple of races, hasn't it?
And now he's really back on fire, isn't he?
Yes.
Which is great to see. So super excited for him, but also was really pleased for Carlos Sainz. I'm a massive Carlos fan, especially since he's moved to Ferrari, because I've always said he's always the underdog, really. People don't put much focus on
No.
Carlos. Yet he was dominant over Lando really last year. He's come in against Leclerc and bang, he's right there on him, isn't he? Straight away. And we all know how special Leclerc is.
Absolutely.
So
and I think
really
they're both
incredible.
carrying that car, aren't they? That's the point, you know.
But the most incredible, third place, Russell
So
in a Williams.
So
You know,
you
so
said
that's the
that's
second time
Yeah.
Lewis, he's out qualified Lewis Hamilton in a Williams. So
They'll
I
be
wonder
getting
what
rattled.
Lewis will be thinking, because of course they're going to be teammates next year. This young hotshot who's bright, who's very intelligent, who'll think a lot about his approach. So it'll be interesting to see what Lewis is really, thinking.
Well, it's interesting
about
because
that.
you could see in the race that the Williams had no pace. You know, so it was there because of George Russell, the car.
Oh, absolutely.
And Hamilton
absolutely.
will know that, you know.
And to be honest,
because he just
until-
plunged back through the field once he got
pitted.
people got past him. He kept
Yeah.
people stuck behind him for a bit. didn't he?
Well, he did brilliant at the start.
Oh, he
It was
did,
only
yeah.
really after being pitted, then it changed. But he held his ground for a long time in a car that is not that quick and
No.
immediate, and that was in the drive.
Yes.
Really. So really impressive stuff.
As did
there.
Carlos, because Carlos led for ages
Yeah.
before Lando finally got past him. Because
Yeah.
I think the McLaren is quicker than the Ferrari.
Oh, yeah.
And Carlos, again, he's carrying the car, which you can see because the Leclerc started on the back row and was flying, really.
Yeah.
You know, but eventually it all went, which we'll come
Well,
to in a
it
minute.
seems to be though with the Ferrari is that it just kills its tyres.
Yes.
So it seems to be because I wonder if because they're both so good, they're out driving the car, but that's working the tyres a lot. So of course they can't do very long on a stint of tyres, either of them. And I think that's having a big impact, isn't it? Because the car isn't quick enough. So hopefully next year for Ferrari, with all these changes, we'll get to see those guys be where they truly deserve to be, honestly.
Yeah.
Which is further up. But yeah, when Lando passed, I mean, he really showed his class. He was just so dominant, wasn't he? Really throughout the race. And it was only towards the end that Hamilton was putting a bit of pressure on.
Yeah, and he was soaking all that up. He was concentrating on his exits, like
Yeah.
we were talking about before.
Yeah.
To get a good exit out of the right corners, there was nothing Hamilton could do about it.
Absolutely. And Hamilton admitted himself that Lando wasn't making any mistakes, and he felt if the conditions stayed as they were, he wouldn't have caught him, and that would have been that. But unfortunately for Lando, the rain came in late and it caused absolute chaos, didn't it?
Well, it was very light at first, wasn't it? And I think McLaren thought it was going to carry on like that.
Yeah.
So they made the decision to stay out.
But that's where I think Mercedes and Red Bull showed their experience a lot.
Yes.
Is when you have to make those very quick decisions. And that's where both Mercedes and Red Bull were like, right, we're doing this. Whereas, of course, McLaren were taking too long to assess the situation.
Plus, they pitted
And
Ricciardo
Ferrari.
too early as well, hadn't they, earlier in the race,
Yeah.
which had released Hamilton.
Yeah.
So there was a couple of tactical errors from McLaren
And
there,
the
really.
same really with Ferrari.
Yeah.
They pitted Carlos at a strange time when really he could have done a longer stint. And of course, with knowing there's rain on the cards, it all didn't make that much sense.
No.
So
and then
I
they
think
didn't pit Leclerc. Leclerc did the same as Lando. He stayed out and ended up he just couldn't stop and understeered into the wall,
exactly,
didn't he?
yeah. So it was a really odd one from McLaren and Ferrari, but I think that is just because obviously they're both won championships. They're both very experienced teams, but obviously a lot of people change within those teams, don't they?
They bought Mercedes.
So I do think they showed their lack of experience of leading the race and having to make that quick decision under vital pressure ultimately, whereas Mercedes made the right call, because to be fair, Lewis was questioning their call, wasn't he? But he did what he was told and went in.
Yeah.
Whereas you notice with Lando and McLaren, their communication was lacking a little bit.
They got a bit flustered, didn't they?
And it was like they both got flustered, the team and the driver. You could see Lando was under a lot of pressure, but he wasn't really being told any other information. So you can see why Lando made the decision he did, because he's thinking, well, we've got 3 laps to go and you're saying this is all it's going to be. Why would we come in? So you can see it from his perspective. Of course, when you've got your helmet on, you don't have much information. But the team had unfortunately misread the rain, hadn't they? Very much so.
Yes.
And it all just went awfully wrong for them.
It got to the point where it was unworkable.
Yeah, and I actually had a friend of mine asking, wow, do tyres really make that much difference? And it's like, oh yeah, slicks in the wet, it's like a skating rink, isn't it? You
Yes.
really don't have much grip at all. if any, most of the time. You're talking, incredibly powerful, light, rear-wheel drive cars, and you can't drive quick enough to use the aero. You're stuffed, really. It was a really sad situation, but I was pleased for Max, because I don't think they could have asked for any more.
No,
ultimately
started plumb last.
Started last because of an engine change, a penalty, which I think then they decided, well, let's do the engine change now. Start last, and to finish second, you could see Max was over the moon with that.
He couldn't believe he was standing there.
Exactly. Damage limitation or what, and Lewis couldn't do any more than he did, really, by winning the race. So that closes the gap. Lewis is back in the lead, but what is it, 2-3 points? Something
not
like
a lot.
that.
Yeah, and of course Hamilton's going to have to take an engine at some point.
Exactly. So this could make it stronger now for Red Bull going forwards, because if we remember back to the start, they were saying how strong Red Bull were with their pace in a straight line. Well, they're back on a fresh engine now, so we'll have to see, really, how that goes. But away from Formula One, though, we also had the IndyCar final.
We did, and one just before we go into.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, sorry. No, before we get to, because it just suddenly occurred to me that the Andretti Autosport, which is one of the big teams in America, are looking to buy one of the F1 teams. So apparently they're talking to Haas and they're talking to Sauber, really.
Yeah, there's definitely more mergers going on, because if you think with IndyCar, we've got McLaren in IndyCar now. Zach Brown was at the Indy round, wasn't he, at Long Beach, rather than the F1 with Lando and so on, and Daniel. And you can see things are getting closer and closer. Actually, Grosjean has spoken quite openly, hasn't he, about his experience in Formula One and now coming over to IndyCar. And he said, if you haven't really got the same kind of funding, as much as everybody wants to do Formula One, if you get to Formula One, you have to run around at the back. And he was saying about all these different modes and fuel saving and tyre saving and this kind of stuff. And he said it's really opened his eyes, hasn't it, being an IndyCar? Because it's more how, all the ranks growing up, you get in and you have to be fast. That's the thing. It's all about being fast and fairly equal equipment. And it's a lot more simplified in that fact. And then that's really what IndyCar is about. It's just being able to go there and fairly equal machinery to everybody else. Of course, there are some teams slightly stronger than others, but it's nowhere near the big gaps that is in Formula One. And he's in a tiny team,
isn't he? And he's a front runner, basically.
Yeah, and he's able to push every single lap for the duration of the race, qualifying, everything, and he's absolutely loving it. And so he's advised young people that are aiming for Formula One, if you haven't got the funds and resources to really get to a top team, then really consider IndyCar. And I think it's just getting IndyCar's back to how it used to be many years ago, isn't it? And I think even Formula One and IndyCar are getting so much closer connections again, with not just drivers but with teams as well. So that's all quite exciting. But if we talk about Long Beach then.
So basically it came down to two people, didn't it, the championship, which is Alex Palau and Pato O'Ward. And Palau...
I thought there was a third.
Well, Newgarden had a real outside chance, but I think Palau basically had to not finish, and Newgarden had to win the race. So, which he tried to do, and he put it on pole and stuff. But the interesting has been the dynamic, and Paul Tracy was talking about this. How you've got Alex Palau, who is he's like Carlos Sainz. He's Spanish, you say. He's Carlos Sainz, and he's a cool
chilled
customer, isn't he? He's really like nothing really gets going. Where Pato O'Ward is this emotional firecracker, and he's wound as tight as a drum all the time, and
well, actually,
and he drives that way. He's spectacular to watch.
Alex Palau's only 24, but he said what happens. He was racing in the Super Formula in Japan.
Yes, so he's never really had that much money. So he's done all kinds of different things, and he's always been at the front. So like he did GP3, he was a front runner in GP3. He's done a couple of Formula 2 races. He led those. But never had any money. So he went over to Super Formula in Japan, which is like Formula 2 or IndyCar but Japanese. And the title came down to the last round, and he had to put it on pole. He had to win the race. He had to set the fastest lap. And he was on pole with the fastest lap, and the engine broke. And it kind of made him think, do you know what? I've done what I can do. There's nothing else I can do. So you have
to have that approach. And he said that coming into this, that I will give it everything I've got, but there's no point worrying about what if this happens or that happens. So many things are out of your control. All you can focus on is what you can achieve and be at peace with that. So if something goes wrong, you have to be at peace with that's out of your control. You can only do your bit. And he just seems so mature and so cool and calculated for for such a young lad, really, who's had to do so many different things to get to IndyCar. But yeah, he won it, didn't he? So he won the championship, which is brilliant to see. So the first Spanish driver to win IndyCar, isn't it?
Yeah. And he had to finish in the top 11, which he's not in a Mercedes or a Red Bull. You know, he said going in, that's harder to do. And a couple of times he was down in 14th place, but didn't panic, and I think he finished about 5th in the end.
Yeah, and just kept pushing. And like you say, it's much harder to do in this because you get a lot of yellows and things that can affect your positioning a lot more so than Formula One.
Yeah.
But also the tracks that are overall more technical and much tighter. So, of course, you know, being a street circuit like this, you know, it's so tight and not forgiving. It doesn't take much to touch the wall and you're out. You know, at Long Beach.
And he's said Pato Ward again. Pato's only 21,
yeah.
And he's going to do the young driver test for McLaren because Zach said if he won a race, he'll let him do the test.
Yeah.
Well, he nearly won the championship, never mind the race.
Yeah.
And of course, typical thing. So Palau was behind him, so he got a better start today, Ward, than Palau. And Ed Jones came steaming in and clouted him up the back.
Yeah.
Spun him round, which eventually meant that the gearbox failed.
And Zach was quite outspoken, wasn't he? Saying it was a very amateurish move and mistake to make. As was O'Ward, to be fair. I mean, O'Ward wasn't unfair with his comments.
No.
He just said, this isn't the first time he's hit me this year. You know, I'm fighting for the championship here. You know, basically could have done without that, ultimately. Yeah. And at that level, you'd like to think there'd be a bit more respect for one another. Not that Jones had done it intentionally.
No, it was
just wasn't really thinking and was too focused on what he was doing.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was only a tap, but enough to send O'Ward round.
And put a shock through the gearbox.
Exactly. So O'Ward carried on, but then it had a failure later on. And, you know, so I think he was quite frustrated by that. And like you said, very different character to Palau. So, yeah, I think he'll be carrying that on his shoulders for a bit, but he needs to try and let that go now and move forwards. He's going to get a test with the F1 McLaren team because, of course, he races for the McLaren IndyCar team. And he was promised that, and he's absolutely achieved that. And Zach Brown knows how good he is. And I hope we get to see more of this, drivers, you know, testing from IndyCar into Formula 1 and vice versa.
It's interesting because Callum Ilott, who finished second in the F2.
Yeah. There was no room for him in Formula 1, was there?
He's over there now.
Yeah.
You've got who's the Lundgaard? Christian Lundgaard's gone over there.
Yeah.
Zach Brown's putting a third car on and putting Stoffel Van Dorn in it. You know, so he's getting bigger and better all the time.
Absolutely.
You know?
And I think we are going to see quite close links now between both, which will be great for up and coming drivers, I think, because there's going to be more options, especially for the people that aren't as well funded, like we've just spoken about with Alex Palau, where he's had to do all sorts of things to get to where he has. Because he hasn't really had the finances to stick at one thing. And I think this is the thing that hopefully youngsters will realise, unless you get really big backers, then perhaps look at this, because you could have such an amazing career and earn incredible money.
And there's a kid in it.
Just a great time.
There's a kid in it called Oliver Askew who's got there on scholarships.
Yeah, how cool is that? And you absolutely deserve it. You know, none of this, you've kind of really paid to get there. You know, he's got there through merit, and that's how I wish it could be for Formula One. But it just some of them are there on merit, but overall now we're seeing more of a shift, aren't we? That you know, you've got to have a huge amount of money, and before an even academy will look at you, and even then, how much support do you get? So there's a huge amount of financial funding required all the way, and even going into Formula 1 these days. So it's much harder, but yeah, it was great. It's great to see. It was a great race. We should mention as well, Colton Herta won the race.
Yes,
he's
and
really
again, he's
shining.
21, isn't he? Yeah.
He's getting stronger and stronger, actually, and I'm surprised there hasn't been a call for him to go over to Formula 1, because he's really quite special.
He is,
his pace is just unbelievable.
He's brilliant. And he works with his dad. His dad's his engineer. Because his dad obviously was his dad won 5 IndyCar races. Colton's now won 6.
So he's outdone him now.
He's outdone his dad, but he is better than his dad, and his dad will be the first person to say that.
Yeah, he has as well, and I think he just gets great joy out of being able to work with his son and see what his son can truly do. And he just seems like he's got Colton Hurst has just this amazing raw pace. Some people are real naturals, and you can just see that with him.
Yeah.
The way he makes the car move around, and I mean seriously move around, which a
He's
single
right
seater
on the limit all the time.
a single seater is hard to do with a load of aero. And he does it, lap after lap, and you think, oh, he made a mistake there. No, he's done it again. Like, he's really right on the edge, isn't he, all the time.
He's good. He's spectacular.
So if anybody doesn't watch IndyCar, I know I say this each time, but honestly, give it a go. It's on Sky F1. It's definitely worth a watch because it will remind you more of old school Formula One. You can appreciate what the driver's doing just that little bit more because they don't have the aero that they do in Formula One. So when you see a driver on a ragged edge, you really get to see it. And of course, it just makes you smile.
It's quick to be on the ragged edge as well.
Oh yeah,
that's the
absolutely.
difference.
And you never know who's going to win, so you do have that element of excitement. That said, though, Formula One this year, despite what people say, has been one of the better years for Formula One, hasn't it?
Because I think it's not in a bad place, F1 at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't like the cars, but
No.
I think as the racing's as good as it's ever been.
Yeah, because we're getting a lot more of a mix and chase for the title, and we're getting people like McLaren and Ferrari and others getting closer, which is what you want, really. You don't ever want one team to be super dominant.
No.
And so hopefully that's going to carry on, and next year we're going to get big changes anyway. So who knows? Mercedes might not even be that quick next year. We don't know, do we? So
who knows?
We'll have to see. So yeah, on to the interactive question then.
Yes. So what I've put is, following the release of the Schumacher documentary, who would you like to see as the subject of a similar documentary?
Well, mine would be Damon Hill, but I know Damon Hill had. Well, I know Damon had his 1996 championship winning year all documented, and that came out. But I'd love to see right from the start of him as a young lad with his dad, to then how he got to his position in Formula One, because he actually didn't follow his dad's footsteps to start with. He went to bikes and was a bit anti going that direction,
and he didn't have any money,
and he didn't have any money, absolutely, and then progressed as he did against some of the greats, and having sort of to take over, from people like Senna and things. There's a lot he's had to do, and to where he is now. I'd absolutely love that, because in his book he says about how he struggled with leaving Formula One, and I think most sports people do when they stop and they retire, because it's their world for such a long time, is what do you do now? And I just think it would be a really fascinating thing.
I agree.
But I think Damon's a very fascinating individual anyway. If you read his book, I've always been a fan of him anyway, but you really get to see what an interesting bloke he is on and off the track.
Yeah, his book, Watching the Wheels, which is a John Lennon song, isn't it, I think?
Yeah.
Is brilliant, because it's not really a motor racing book.
That's
it's
the thing.
A fabulous book.
He's just...
It's probably one of the best sports autobiographies you'll read.
He's just so interesting. So I think if you could have a documentary on him, go up through the ranks, and then have a feature of him now, I think that would be really, really interesting. Because he got to obviously do some really close battles with, Schumacher, but obviously had the greats of Senna and all sorts around him. So, I think, it'd be great to see.
Cool.
What about you?
Probably for me, Gilles Villeneuve. I don't think there's ever been... I think there was a thing called Formula Villeneuve or something. It's in French, I think.
There was a thing where... was it not his daughter talking about it?
No, that was Ronnie Peterson. Yeah, super sweet. Yeah.
So
never mind him. Yeah. Because the thing with Gilles was he came from absolutely nothing. He lived in a caravan, and he raced because he lived in Canada. He raced skidoos, and he was brilliant at racing skidoos. But he used to have to leave his wife with a blowtorch so she could unthaw the pipes in the caravan. They had nothing, And he scraped money together. And what happened to him was there used to be a Formula Atlantic race, a place called Three Rivers, and Trois Rivières, and a lot of the Formula One drivers used to go over. And James Hunt went in the year he won the World Championship. James Hunt went and did it.
Yeah.
And of course got blown away by this kid and thought, Christ, he's good. So he went back to McLaren and said, you need to sign him.
Yeah.
And that's how he ended up in F1. But he came from absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'd love to...
he's a legend.
Yeah.
So,
I would love to see a documentary on him, because I actually don't know that much about him.
No.
Obviously, when I was watching it with Jacques, I love it.
The pretend Villeneuve, is
Jacques a bit different. I mean, he's the champion. He's succeeded.
More successful than his dad,
but
not a legend like his dad. His dad's one of the pantheon of,
Yeah, so it'd be great to see that. So, yeah, do let us know. So, with the interactive questions, so who would you like to see a documentary on? Similar to what we've seen with the Schumacher documentary. And also, you can let us know your thoughts on that as well. What do you think of the Schumacher documentary as well? I found it really, really interesting because that's sort of all the year I started really watching Formula One. So, it certainly takes me back a bit to being a child and sitting there watching these races. And you can see how much the sport's changed a lot over the years when you go back to that. But yeah, definitely get in touch and let us know. It's always nice to hear from you. So we'd love to hear your answers as well. So next week, which is now really this week.
Is
we're off to Snetterton, aren't we?
Yeah, another long journey.
So Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We've got Sarah's final championship race, so we're coaching her with that. And what's great is she started her first race at Snetterton, so it'll be really nice to see the progression. Obviously, we don't know what the weather's doing. I mean, it's raining outside at the moment. It might be a wet race, who knows? But yeah, really looking forward to that. And then really around that, we're just doing a lot of stuff with Veloce in general, aren't we? With our tours, the academy. Also Speedworks, because we're really building a special sort of program similar to the people that have heard of Valley Zone, I suppose, that kind of thing, but of the north, of race simulator training, coaching, all that kind of stuff. So and mind coaching as well. So lots that we're looking at there. And then next week we'll have all sorts to talk about again, won't we? Cars, motorsport, driving,
same stuff.
Usual stuff. And of course, we will start announcing some of these guests. So we're hoping next week we're going to have a few announcements in place. So yeah, fingers crossed on that one. And it's just getting the dates in so you know when they'll actually be live, so you can have a listen or watch as well. So if you haven't already, do try and listen to the Richard Atwood interview or watch it, or Perry McCarthy and so on. There's quite a few on there. Guests that have been on already. So yeah, if you haven't, have a watch or a listen and see what you think. And I think that's it.
That's pretty much it, for this week.
All right, guys and girls, thanks for listening and watching, and we'll be with you next week.
See you next week. Bye.